couldn't understand at the time. It made me so mad. I was furious that people that I worked with and trained with and served with were going and I wasn't going. It was partly a selfish thing, but it was also a worried thing. You know, every night to watch the news, and during Desert, or not during Desert Storm, but during the Panama, they were publishing, each night they would publish injuries and casualties, and that was pretty traumatic to sit and watch those names and just think, oh man, I hope I don't want to see one of mine. And to own something that's not yours to own. I wanted to own things that I didn't have the right to own. I didn't realize that. That slowly over time come to me. And the only way I could make sense of any of this is that either A, I'm not as well trained as I thought I was, and I'd either kill myself or get someone else killed, or my point in life was not to go to war. My point was to help others who had been. And so I made peace with that and deal with that, and there's a lot of us that deal with that. We had a young man, Max Kavanaugh, and that may ring a bell. The overpass where all the construction's going on Anchorage now, the Max Kavanaugh, Stephen Max Kavanaugh Memorial Bridge there on the old Glen, or the new Glen. Max was at the Warrior Transition Unit, and I took Max and a bunch of guys out fishing in October of 2008. I took the guys out fishing. We went way late in the season, but they wanted to fish, so I took my boats out and we floated down the river with some of the members of the command, the leadership team, and I took a stretch hummer. I had a guy who donated a stretch hummer for us to go pick the guys up, and I thought that'd be kind of cool. And it was a learning point for me. It wasn't near as cool as I thought it was because Max was completely freaked out by being in a Humvee. So he sat scrunched down, his hat was pulled down, and his collar was up, and he was down low, and so we didn't push him. But the commander, he was in the boat with me, and the commander sat with us, and we talked and visited, and he was quietly helpful but not real outgoing, where the rest of the guys were just laughing and joking and picking on each other. And anytime you see a group of warriors laughing and joking and picking on each other, life is good. Life is really good, and Max was not having a good day. And as we went down Little Willow, maybe 2 miles into the float, someone off in the distance had fired a gun, and I thought he was going to come out of the boat. He just really... So we pulled over and we took a break and built a fire and had lunch, and the commander said that Max was actually in a guarded status. He was almost on suicide watch, and this was an attempt to see what would make a difference for him. See if he could come out of his shell. And he was medicated and he was in counseling. And so I asked the commander if maybe she would ride another boat and just let him be with me. You know, having been a first sergeant, I'm kind of capable of taking care of soldiers, and I know that commanders sometimes can intimidate. So I asked her to ride a boat forward, so she did, and he sort of relaxed a little bit, and I saw that a lot of his pressure came from he was worried about a performance or a certain level of expectation that he didn't think he could meet. And so anyway, as we moved on, he said, I'd kind of like to fish. So I set him up, and he couldn't cast. That was horrible. And I said, have you ever fished? He said, no, I haven't. At 23 years old, I'd never fished. And I said, well, let's try it. Let me show you how this works. And so I set him up, and he did pretty good. And you know, no one caught fish. It was October. It's too late to catch fish, but we had fun. Anyway, Max fished a little bit. Next thing you know, he's wanting to row the boat, and then he wants to learn how to row the boat, and he wants to learn more. So as we got to the end, I got all the guys on the bank, and I got all the other boats in front of us to the bank, and as I was doing that, holding in place, I sort of lost our position. I got into the current a little bit, and I said, Max, I need you to hold the boat steady because I'm going to walk us in. So I jumped out into the river, and I'm pulling us up current, and next thing I know, Max had put another guy on the oars, and he's right beside me pulling the boat. So from that, we stood wet and laughed and joked while we waited for our ride to come get us. And so every night for about the next 45 days, he was on the phone with me, and we talked about just life. And he wanted to become a guide. He wanted to stay in Alaska. He wanted to learn to become a guide and take people out and do what we did. And during the interim of this whole time, the medications had stopped. He was allowed to move back into his barracks room. Had gone off post now, had time off on his own. Had met a girl, had a girlfriend, had gotten a car, and things had changed in a really quick amount of time. And unfortunately, Max hit a moose, and it didn't decapitate him. It just crushed his skull. So clinically dead. So his parents flew up to see him and had to unplug him. And Max was a donor, a tissue and organ donor. and 4 people were able to benefit. It didn't save any lives, but four people benefited from Max's death through tissue and organ donor. My point to that, Max had been over 300 convoys in his tour in Iraq, and had people shot off of vehicles he was driving, had people shot inside vehicles, and never once had a scratch, not one injury on him. Max was genuinely suffered from PTSD, and his biggest issue was, why not me? He didn't understand why those things could happen, and he could survive them. And for me, I learned so much from Max. I mean, I honestly think that's what, I think we were put together for a purpose, to be able to do that for other people, because in order for me to coach Max, I had to understand why not me. So I learned from Max why not me, because I've got something I need to be doing. And Max had something he needed to be doing, and that's probably keeping hundreds of people alive on those convoys. And I think we're put on Earth with a task list, and once we get it done, we get promoted, and we can move on. But evidently Max had gotten that done, and that's how his parents and I came to peace with that, is an understanding of, you know, Max had obviously achieved everything he was supposed to achieve, he achieved. There's certain reasons I think that we don't get to do things. We don't get to go to war. Still not happy about it. But, you know, goodness gracious, if I'd have been killed, I just think of all the things that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of and connect. And it's not me doing it, it's just me being placed in the right place at the right time with the right people to try to do the right things. And if I weren't here, some of those things might not have happened. You know, and it's not just me, we're all that way. I mean, I think everyone that goes ahead of time probably goes on time. We just got to figure out why. What are we supposed to take away from that? And that in and of itself is the nucleus of Alaska's Healing Hearts. It's that acknowledgement of, hey, you did what you did, and you're here. Let's do what's next. Let's do what you're supposed to do. And I think it matters. Heck, I know it matters.